Welcome to Short Circuits, an ongoing YouTube series where we discuss Transformers cartoons from the past and present. Together we're typically known as Triple Takeover, but this is a bit of a new endeavour for us, isn't it, lads?
Yeah, we're on the YouTube. This is
Yeah,
great.
a little bit.
I'm loving it.
The YouTube.
The YouTube.
How do, fellow kids?
Right, exactly that. Thank you, Liam. I think that's going to be making a regular appearance, that meme, isn't it?
Is that not just going to be the video looping? Just that one?
Pretty much.
Just Obi-Wan. Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much us in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do already do a fortnightly podcast, and we have plenty of Patreon exclusive material as well, which I'm sure we'll pimp for you another time. But for today, we're going all the way back to where it very first began in 1984 with what's now known as the G1 cartoon, Generation 1, but back then was just known as The Transformers.
Good use of the. It's a very important.
Thank you very much.
Is the
You've got to
important
get the, don't you? Yeah.
I still hold a grudge against them now whenever they just call it Transformers, because that's what the brand is now. I'm like, it's the Transformers.
It's yeah. There was a real era back then when they appreciated the use of the.
Sir, I want a copy of the Transformers comic, please.
I always have to write it of like the Transformers the movie. Well, it all begins with this episode. This is More Than Meets the Eye Part 1. Did either of you have this on VHS when you were a kid?
Yes, still do.
Big memes of this, big memories. And I just love that it's branded as a full-length cartoon spectacular. Like, it's not half-length, not quarter-length. Not even 2/3 of the length. It's full length, baby.
And in full colour.
Again, that VHS cover. Wonderful. Yeah.
Before we move into the show, Gold Megatron, why did we not get a crotch like that in the cartoon?
Asking the important questions here, Liam. Straight
it's
out of
a
the
U
gate.
rating.
Exactly.
Liam, that's what it is.
And of course, it all starts a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Of course it does. That's where they all start as well. Although I'm going to quickly point out that the title sequence is just pure nostalgia immediately for me.
Incredible.
The music, the action, still my favourite start to a cartoon ever. It's just...
Is that right?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
That noise, when it's zooming in on Cybertron, that space noise of like, boop, boop, you know, like the old Sputnik satellite kind of thing. And Victor Corolli's voice, and he's like,
I was just going to say about Victor Corolli, incredible. Yeah. Of course, he's in Transformers the movie as well. Sorry, The Transformers the movie.
Yeah,
I should say.
Right. That's it.
But yeah, his vocal narration here is amazing. Honestly, it really sets the tone for all of this.
I would love to have his voice. Can you imagine answering phone calls like that when you get like cold callers and you're just like, yes, I'm sorry, I do not want your products. Stop calling
I can imagine it now. I think that might be how I start answering the phone now. I think that might be what I go
That's
for.
A great idea.
He sets the tone for the show, doesn't he, brilliantly, with this like awesome voiceover. Instantly sets the stage for what the cartoon is, what the Autobots are doing.
Yeah, it's so quick as well. This is what happened. Here we are. Let's go.
100%. I do think there's a really, I almost want to say like pre-80s timeless quality to this.
Yeah.
You know, like a real, like it's like the big band music, kind of old school orchestra, that kind of stuff.
A lot of these 80s cartoons had that, and it's very much, you can feel the crossover from the 70s. Like a lot of these writers, the musicians, all these staff, the producers will have come up in the 70s.
It's like when you first meet Optimus Prime and there's that little tune like didin, 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 going on in the background. And it's just got this real kind of funk about it. And then in comes jazz.
Dun, dun,
you know?
Yeah.
That's it, exactly.
It's so
brilliant.
Great. All of that music. I hear it now and I'm just like, I'm right back there. But I think it's the same with the voice acting, you know, as well. There's like an almost like an old boys club quality to the voice acting somehow.
Can I shout out to my guy Casey Kasem, you know, coming in with Cliff Jumper. A just like brilliant voice for a cartoon character.
End the recording. Star of the episode, Cliff Jumper. Easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what's he like?
I rewatched this with my girlfriend, and she kept laughing while she was looking at her phone. And it was every time Cliff Jumper says anything, she found it funny. And she said at the end of it, she was like, I could see why kids like this in the 80s.
Oh.
It's that line, isn't it? I've got
Megatron dead center in my viewfinder.
And then he misses him.
Viewfinder.
he does not. Yeah, spoiler alert. I made this note. I just put, everyone is a bit incompetent. And I feel like that's true of Cliff Jumper as well. Sorry to say it. But, really. I mean, no one has any clue what they're doing. It's all very chaotic.
Bumblebee doesn't even understand his own biology. When he says and he gets hit and he's like, oh, it's just my rear axle. And you're like, You're a floating car.
Yeah.
What do you have an axle for? You don't have bloody wheels.
It's true. You're not actually a car, mate.
Yeah.
What I really love about this episode and what this rewatch really showed me, let's be fair, Megatron's plan is shit, isn't it? It's like, it's really, really bad. His whole deal is that he decides to follow Optimus Prime off into space because he thinks that Optimus Prime has found a new source of energy. And so he's going to see what this new source of energy is.
He's
and
very
take it for
paranoid.
himself.
Yeah.
But it turns out Optimus doesn't have a clue either.
No, he's just blindly crashing into asteroids.
Very tenuous reasons for taking off and leaving Cybertron, isn't it? It's like, Jazz, did you find anything? No. Okay, let's hop in the spaceship and blow up some asteroids.
Gotta go.
The Autobots could have won immediately if they'd just done a decoy arc and sent that off, and then that's it.
Just
and stay at
U-turn
home.
back.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a shockwave there, just in the car park.
Going,
Like,
oh no, Megatron. Oh.
It's very light on this kind of plot, isn't it? It's just like, how do we get them into space? Just put me in a spaceship, mate. Send them up.
Exactly.
Who cares?
But so this is the thing that I really noticed on the rewatch, which was how quickly it moves from one bit to another bit to another. They cram a lot into 22 and a half minutes in that episode.
But it makes sense.
4 million years of plot happens within the space of about 2 seconds. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just
Gosh.
like they're on Cybertron, they're in space, there's a meteor shower, they're on a volcano, they're woken up in a volcano. You know, it's just rapid.
4 million years of plot condensed like that. Then you watch the bloody Lord of the Rings movie and it's like 7 hours of your life.
Yeah,
Gone.
to walk along a road.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson could not do this.
This is efficiency of storytelling. That's what I'm saying.
And efficiency of getting every single character into that cartoon as concisely as they possibly could. Like the Autobot car moment where Jazz is calling out the roll call. I love that bit.
It's incredible.
It's so great, isn't it?
It's like peak Generation 1 Transformers animation, that is. Like outside of the movie, I don't think it was ever bettered. And it says everything that sequence was heavily reused. Like in a lot of later episodes, they took clips of like Jazz transforming and whatever else and just reused it mercilessly. And fair enough, because it looks amazing here.
It really does. And his Prime leads them all off as well in his trailer mode.
I don't think Optimus Prime looks better anywhere else in the show than in these
agree.
episodes. Like, that's what I always say when we talk about the masterpieces and stuff like that. I'm always like, man, I want a toy of Optimus that looks like the cartoon, and it's that there. Those
this specific episode. Yeah.
It's so nicely done.
Yeah, he has a more of a kind of curved
rounded face
to in the way that it's done. The one thing I would say about the characters though as well is that the Decepticons get a bit more kind of character development. You know, you immediately find out within that first episode that Starscream is a maniac and just wants to be the leader.
They lay the groundwork to tell you that Starscream is a massive dick straight away. Isn't it?
They really
it's very
absolutely.
instant. There's no beating about the bush there.
He's responsible for waking up the Autobots. You know?
Again, everyone is a bit incompetent. I mean, firstly, let's not ignore the fact that all the Autobots are deactivated on the ship, and Megatron's like, we'll just leave them here, I guess.
Yeah,
you know, like, this is your moment, mate. This is like, you've won. You've literally won. Victory is here. It's been handed to you.
Throw them in the lava.
Yeah. The other thing with this is that a lot of stuff happens by accident, right? Like the meteor shower, and then Teletran 1 just randomly wakes up because of a volcano going off. Starscream shoots the thing, and Prime just happens to fall in the path of the laser beam. You know, all of this kind of stuff.
Happenstance is big here.
Complete happenstance.
I have to say, one of my favourite parts of this episode is always the same bit, and it's when the Autobots blow up the asteroids, create the asteroid field themselves. And, I mean, Ironhide gets on that giant cannon that's just waving about there, but it's the way the Nemesis floats in behind them, and it just kind of goes whoop.
It's through all
and they
the
don't
meteor.
Notice.
I
It's
know.
really funny.
My favourite bit, though, is when Prime gets reanimated and turns around and just goes,
Thanks.
and then it's like the weirdest cut ever. It's so funny.
It really does feel like they just cut in the middle of a line there. That's it. Thanks.
He's such a nice Optimus. I quite enjoy when he's on the Ark and he just takes the reins of the steering wheel. He's like, I'll just pilot it like this.
When Jazz falls out of his seat, just inexplicably. I've never seen anybody fall out of a seat in such a way
It's
before.
like somebody's got the Hoover out behind him and like sucked him up.
Exactly. Coming back to Megatron's plan, I feel like we really need to talk about this a little bit because
It's not his master plan.
it's definitely not. He's not worked out his master plan by this point. But again, he's just followed them off into the void. There's literally no plan other than let's see where they go.
He's a stalker.
Yeah,
He's just stalking.
He's stalking them.
He's got
obsessed.
FOMO. That's what it is.
He's obsessed with them. But even Starscream's like, we could literally destroy them right now and be done with this. Why don't we do that? And he's like, I want to see where this goes.
Going to sit in this big chair and watch where they go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the best thing is they get to Earth, they crash land, they're asleep for 4 million years, they wake up, and one of the Seekers, I think Skywarp, says to him, how do we know Cybertron still exists? And his brilliant answer is, it must exist.
There's a line. There's no doubt at all. There's not even any attempt to address
Blind
it.
faith.
You can tell when the writer somewhere's we've got to address that, it's 4 million years. Maybe something's happened, and he's just nope. No,
yep,
Megatron,
I know.
just hand wave that away.
I'm the leader. Exactly.
I love the way all the Decepticons are like, that's good enough for me.
Yep.
Yeah,
all right then.
That works. He then instructs them, can I say, to build their new base. And when they're like, where are we going to build it? He's like,
right here.
In this pile of rocks. What is this? What kind of boss is this?
I know. But this is the thing that's so funny about how they develop the plot is then they just go, should we go over there? And there's this suddenly pan right and there's this entire thing that they can just destroy and steal from. And then next scene, they've built half of their escape shuttle.
Oh, yeah. But yes, coming back to your boy Cliffjumper, if we're shouting out people being incompetent in this, he's got to get a mention, right?
Where does he pull that massive gun from, for one thing?
I wouldn't care to speculate.
No, exactly. And he's just an absolute nut job. Just alerts the entire Decepticon army that the Autobots are alive.
He's like that just one lad at school, isn't he? The one who just always thinks he's the best at everything.
Yeah, thinks he's
just
cool.
Gets everyone and makes all the racket and gets everyone else into trouble.
That's true.
There are precisely two Transformers in this that are in any way competent at all. Number one is Soundwave, who kicks ass literally any opportunity he can
He
get.
does, doesn't he? Yeah.
He's just taking out Autobots left and right, so much so that we get 2 clips of him cut next to one another, doing exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's bizarre. But then Laserbeak as well, who's spying on people, he's chasing off Hound and Cliffjumper, and then he pecks Optimus so hard that Optimus has to stop battling Megatron atop the oil rig as well. He's got the peck of doom.
He's also got a magic wand gun.
Yes, I was going to say the laser
floating around
that he's controlling.
It's like that Mr. T Mohawk geezer off Guardians of the Galaxy. He's got that pen.
He's a bit whistling.
Laserbeak's got one of them.
Yeah, maybe he's doing all of that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Condor whistle.
No, I mean, I do want to say about the design and stuff, and you've mentioned some of it, but Cybertron, I think here looks incredible. The ships, the Ark, the Nemesis, all of that looks amazing. All of the Cybertronian stuff, I think, is gold. I love all the little non-earthen vehicle modes and things like this. I think are wonderful.
Can I just give a big shout out to Wheeljack's interior, where he's got a little phone with a little port.
Totally. Brilliant, isn't it?
Touch.
It's proper 60s Star Trek stuff, isn't it? Like the interiors and the dials and things. Yeah. I love that. Obviously, Soundwave turns into a lamppost. That's pretty famous by now. But what is weird is that Laserbeak doesn't turn into a bird because he's on Cybertron. But he does still turn into a cassette.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, totally.
Why does Teletron 1 turn him into a bird? I've never understood this, because he's not going to blend in as a parakeet or something, is he?
Big robotic.
No one's going to go, there's a falcon has just flown past.
It's brilliant. It's like Teletron 1 turned left for the majority of the time and went to the city, and then a couple of times he just went, I'll go right this time, and then got a bird and got a cat. And that was it.
I mean, this is where Teletron 1 landed the Sky Spy in Birmingham City Centre or somewhere like that, and just saw pigeons everywhere and went, Laserbeak, there he is. He's a pigeon. Soundwave just chucking Energon crumbs down for him.
Yeah, come back. Yeah, there is a bit of a leap on that, isn't there? Bumblebee and Wheeljack have got their Cybertronian mode, and even the Seekers in their robot mode look like the G1 Seekers, but then they get back into their Cybertronian mode and they are just the prisms.
There's a lot of that. I mean, take a look at Jazz in his Cybertronian mode, and then he transforms and has half a Porsche just off his chest. It
is. It's really funny.
It makes no sense. But it is
the
what it is.
The Cybertronians were just 4 million years ahead of design curves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's also the mass displacement where Wheeljack and Bumblebee are standing next to each other, and then Bumblebee's in the back of Wheeljack, and then he's transformed and he's in a spaceship in the back of Wheeljack.
Yeah.
That kind of thing happens
Physics.
all the time. Physics.
Science.
Who cares?
Some other things I noticed with this, of course, is that the Autobots can fly here, but then they forget that they can fly when they're on the oil rig, and Megatron shoots it down, and he's like, ha 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 ha, and they're all like, oh no, we're going in the water. What do we do? It's like, you can fly. You can literally fly.
They've been Men in Blacked.
But yeah, apparently what happened here was that there was many, many more clips of the Autobots flying, and they actually cut a lot of it out and replaced it with the scenes of them driving, because they, I think halfway through production, worked out that it made no sense for the Autobots to be able to fly and be cars, because it would kind of remove that whole gimmick.
I have a very important question, though. How big is a mega mile? because that's what Wheeljack says. We've got 1 mega mile to go.
Almost the same size as a Cortex, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the other one, the Cortex.
I know.
These must be scientific terms. I bet they are.
Yeah. A mega mile is not a scientific term.
A megamile, yeah.
Mega mile.
And then you get things like Reflector transforming into a camera to take a photo of a truck so that they can see what's going on.
The prints
And
out.
A
printing
Polaroid
out
camera.
a Polaroid.
Yeah, which is the worst resolution ever.
Could only been better if Thundercracker had been shaking the picture for a few minutes. Then. Come on,
So it's
man.
blowing on it. Just
Oh, I've got the exposure all wrong on that.
Oh no.
take another one. It's just
I'll have to
absolutely
take that
hilarious.
down to super snaps later.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the stuff I noticed in this, I think we already said about the 2 asteroids out of nowhere, but what is going on there? It's just the fact as well that, again, the incompetence thing. They didn't see this on the scanners. There was no pre-warning.
Nope, they don't detect anything until it's right in front of them, and then
Yeah.
they use up all the power to the laser, but not to the shuttle as well.
Yeah.
And did you notice when they get attacked, when the Decepticons connect to the Ark, there's that repeating shot. So
Yeah,
Optimus
it's
Prime
really
points,
weird.
and then it repeats again, and you're like, oh, you ran out of animation there.
Yeah.
One thing for me that stand out, though, there's moments of animation in it that are really, really good. And there's a bit where Starscream does a backflip takeoff and flies
Yeah.
away
Yeah,
when they
that's
go,
super
and
nice.
there's really nice little moments that happen.
This cartoon is very often, sometimes rightly so, thinking of later episodes, written off a little bit as a sort of glorified toy commercial. And it is exactly that. But you can tell that there's some love gone into this as well. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
attempt to craft a decent storyline, to have some characterization for the kind of main players anyway. And, the music is fantastic. The vibe is cool. So, yeah, it is a little bit glorified Saturday morning advert or whatever for toys, but there's something to this as well, and it stokes the imagination in the right way, I think.
Yeah, and do you know
Yeah.
what illustrated that best for me is I watched this with my 11-year-old boy, and he got up and started running around the room pretending to be a transformer, and it just was exactly what this cartoon does. It
There
was
you
just
go.
it's a huge amount of fun. He just
He
absolutely
didn't do a
was there.
backflip, though.
He didn't do a backflip and transform. No,
Turn
not
into a
there
jet.
Yet. Yeah, exactly, not there yet. But it just,
Phew.
it makes me grin from ear to ear watching this, and I've seen this
Yeah.
countless times.
Yeah.
And it just
It's charming. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's got a charm to it that
Absolutely
is
charmed.
is hard to kind of deny. So
Yeah.
some other things that I did notice though that are quite funny. No human is in this without a hard hat.
yeah.
And those yellow wellies.
Yellow-
They all
Yeah.
seem to be wearing those yellow
I know,
wellies.
they're all riggers from
Yeah.
the middle of the desert, but that's
There
what
was a
they wear.
multi-buy. That was the thing. Someone there was a big sale.
I really enjoyed Spike's wave at one point. When he's like, "Oh no, we're all burning," then he just waves. He's like, "Oh, Cooey, can somebody help me, please, Optimus?"
I love it when when Rumble is pinning his dad to the part of the oil rig, and then he tries to come in and rescue him, and Rumble just turns around and just goes wham, and you just hear this off camera splosh.
Yeah, that's funny. I like the fact that Spike punches Rumble, who is
Yeah.
a metal robot with his
Yeah.
full fist, and it's like
Yeah,
you've just
what-
broken your hand, mate. Like, it's not a good plan. But even better before that, when the Decepticons land on the oil rig, these giant, massive robots, and without them even saying a word, I mean, the humans don't know that they're destructive at this point, but their initial reaction is, "Let's get them!" And they start
Yeah,
throwing
start-
nuts and bolts at them, just willy nilly. Like, what is this?
Let's
Those are the
antagonize the big
proactive
monkey.
heroes we need.
Also, fair to
Yeah,
say, there is
exactly.
not one, and I checked, not one single female character in this.
Oh,
No, there
that
isn't,
is
is
a
there?
very good point.
Human or robot.
Wow.
Not one.
Wow, very of its time. Ooh,
Yeah.
cringe.
And obviously, we'd get some introduced later on, but it would be a while.
Is it worth mentioning as well that there is a character in there that is not their actual name, toy name?
What, Hauler?
Yes.
Hauler.
So Hauler,
I
yeah.
hardly know her.
Ah, I knew he was going to say it. I was going to try and beat him to the punch at his own game.
Nah,
and I
I
failed.
can't do it, man.
Yeah.
Hauler, so this is apparently anyway, this was obviously it was Grapple from the toy line,
Yeah.
the G1 toy Grapple, which was released in 1985. But actually, it seems like there was a plan to release it originally in 1984. But there were 11 toys released in the initial wave of Autobot cars. But one of the toys, Mirage, was double packed. But they reckoned that the plan was that Grapple would have been part of that, the 12th toy, if you like, in that initial assortment.
Yeah.
Hence why it was included in the sort of early version of the cartoon, but then cut out.
Just imagine if they maintained the name Hauler and had released him. And like all these years later, we would have had a Solar Storm Hauler. Do you remember how they spelled Grappel?
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Remember that?
Hauler.
Hauler.
Made in French. Could have done that, given a little moustache.
Yeah.
Hauler.
Hauler. Hello. It's true. Let's get a bit of low.
Maybe he was French, in the original cartoon.
Didn't say
We don't know.
anything, did he? Yeah.
Prime's just like, Hola, where have you been? He's like, Je suis allé à la plage. Dans la bibliothèque. That sounds French. School French.
It sounds French, yeah.
That sounds French. It's good. Like from that textbook you get at school.
That's exactly where it's from, Jason.
Yeah, I know,
It's
exactly.
a good stab. It's a good stab. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but there is a lot of stuff deleted out of this as well and cut. And I'm not going to do an exhaustive list. I mean, this was uncovered by the fine fellas at Transformers at the Moon, otherwise known as the Mapes Brothers, who you might recognize. But yeah, there's a lot of additional audio that was kind of trimmed. Mirage pining for home and Trailbreaker got a lot more dialogue. There was more stuff from like Prowl and Jazz about the lack of resources on Cybertron, things like this. But the one that's really interesting is about the Viewtrex report that Prowl talks about aboard the shuttle.
Yeah.
And this was all trimmed because there's initially a bit where Prime orders the Viewtrex report to be launched and they think that they spot something, but then the Decepticons cloak themselves essentially. And it's the meteor shower that, because they lose energy, sort of drops the cloak, if you like. And that's why Prowl says, Viewtrex report, we are being followed. It makes so much more sense when you get the additional dialogue in there and everything.
It makes them look slightly less stupid.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
It makes more sense.
I mean, there was more stuff on Cybertron. You got a little scene of the Ark being built, Bumblebee being fixed after being shot by the Seekers, that kind of stuff.
It does hold together really well, though.
It does.
And it's just, as I said earlier, just a huge amount of fun.
Very easy to follow. Like I said, there's lots of plot holes when you look for them, but...
I mean, only real nerds would go looking for, like, these little inconsistencies.
You mean like people who have podcasts?
Exactly. But yeah, look, there was a lot more stuff. I mean, even things like, the fact that the Autobots all charge off in car mode, and then the next time you see them, they're flying to the oil rig. It's not an error, because it does make sense in some senses, but you actually see the scene where they stop and then they transform.
A lot of the things that are taken out, you can make the mental leap as to why they're doing things.
I just remembered as well, though, because there's a sequence with Ravage in it, which is completely unnecessary, except that it's just like they want to get Ravage in it,
We've got toys to sell, Jason.
Well, I was going to say, Jason, this might shock you, but they were trying to sell the toy line.
No, really?
Do you think that they're going to sell themselves?
What? No way. I didn't know
back
that was a thing.
Back in the early 80s, there was this line called Diaclone and Microchange. I don't know if you know all of this.
I have never heard about this. Maybe we should
have
do an episode
talk about it now.
this.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to come back to all of that.
Join the podcast, hear more. We'll explore it there.
But how are we feeling then? Are we pretty jazzed about this as an opening? Do you think it holds up?
Yeah. It's still great. So much charm in this episode.
Still not mentioned the Autobot switch to Decepticon logo transition.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
much good stuff.
Peak Transformers. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
As a start to this franchise, there's not a lot here to argue about, I don't think.
Yep, agreed.
But if you do want to get more chat like this and you like what you've heard, then you might want to listen to our main podcast, Triple Takeover, which is a fortnightly podcast. You can find it also on YouTube, on Spotify, and all kinds of podcast hosts as well. Or you might want to get on our Patreon as well, because we have 5 glorious tiers of content on there. We've got a Discord. We've got tons of exclusive content on there as well. We do regular ongoing mini-series about different topics, including comics and toys and all kinds of stuff Transformers related. So you'll find a link in the description below for that. Otherwise, don't forget to drop us a like and subscribe for this as well, because we're going to be doing a lot more content coming up. But thank you very much for listening, and from me and the rest of the boys at Triple Takeover, we'll see you next time.
Whoop!